We have a very special guest here today. He became an NBA Twitter sensation during this NBA offseason with his concise and clear analysis. He worked for the Nets organization for 20 years, 2 decades, math. He was the assistant general manager for the Nets from 2010 until 2015. Let's welcome in on the Hive Talk Live hotline, Bobby Marks. Bobby, thanks so much for being here.
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Good. So we saw on Twitter that you had some very flattering things to say about the Hornets offseason. Now, I know we just got you on here, Bobby, but I hate to break it to you, but you may be in the minority on that opinion on the national scene. I think it's you, it's us, maybe a couple commenters on atthehive.com. Why do you feel like this offseason has been positive for the Charlotte Hornets?
Well, I think the minority or the people who are looking at what they did in the offseason with a negative light are probably more looking at what they did draft night, where we all heard the rumors, and I think Zach Lowe wrote a pretty good piece about it with what Charlotte had been offered, and they turned it down and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of where a lot of people are looking at it from that perspective. But I like a lot what they did. They did a lot of their homework early. You know, they made the Batum and the Hollis trade before the draft. They were able to get 2 nice pieces there. I like Kaminsky a lot. I was fortunate where I got to interview him during pre-draft camp and sat down with him. He's got a great personality. I think he'll be able to come on the court and play right away. The Jeremy Lin signing as a backup for the biannual $2.1 million, and they got him on the cheap. He's a high quality. A backup there, and then you kind of cap it off with the Gilchrist extension. Probably below market value, especially where we saw wings kind of came off the board this summer, where a guy like Shumpert is making $10 million per. He got Gilchrist right around between 12 and 13 million, but I liked what they did. The East got a lot better. The back end of the East, probably positioned, 6 on back and everything. And, if Kaminsky, doesn't live up to the expectation, then we'll probably all have egg on our face and everything. But I do like what Rich Joe and the people down there did.
Bobby, you mentioned the extension and the signing of MKG. From his point of view, to go ahead and cash in now as opposed to waiting on maybe the big TV deal money, was that a good move for him?
I think so, because he's still young enough where he'll get another crack at the apple, 3 or 4 years from now. And if he if he plays well enough, there's still a pot of money down the road for him. He's been a little bit nicked up the last couple of years and stuff, and it's hard for players when you put a contract in front of a guy where he's guaranteed to make $52 million over 4 years, to turn money, especially guaranteed money, down and then roll the dice and going into possibly a restricted free agency period where you always have, at 82 games, you can possibly get injured. Does that deal go off the table next year? Is it a lower number and everything like that? So it is hard for a player to turn down that money and everything. But I think if he plays up to his billing and he has a good 3 or 4 more years, he'll have another chance to make some more money there.
Bobby Marks joining us here live on Hive Talk Live this evening. One theme of this offseason that has, kind of caused some concern from some Hornets fans and some folks around the league is this idea that the Hornets are in all-out win-now mode, and to do that, they've sacrificed the future for the present. Do you necessarily agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. I think when you're in an all-out win mode, you don't have a safety net. And I think if you put all your chips to you push them to the middle, that means that you've kind of depleted a lot of your assets with, if it's draft picks, future picks, and if it fails, then there's nothing for you to, there's no net for you to catch. So I don't agree with that. You've got, you still have Kemba Walker, who's a nice young player. You've got Gilchrist. You've got Batum in the trade. I understand that. You got Batum in the trade, but and he's going into a walk year, so you're not sure if you're going to be able to retain him next year. If you have good success, that will help. But I don't buy in that they're in a win mode now. I know they're in a win mode now to get into the playoffs. I do know that just in talking with the with the folks down in Charlotte and everything. But I don't. I think a win now mode is Sacramento. I think there's no safety net there where they've kind of pushed their chips to the table a little bit, and they've gotten some players that could help. But as you guys know, you're out west. It's a bloodbath out there. I think when we were in Brooklyn a couple years ago, we were kind of in a win now mode, and we pushed our trips to the table, and we gave away a bunch of picks when we did the Boston deal and stuff like that. But I don't agree that with what the people are saying regarding Charlotte.
Here with Bobby Marks, was an assistant GM with the Nets organization from 2010 to 2015. In your time there in Brooklyn, were you part of a war room draft night scenario? Were you involved in those?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, and what happens usually, the process kind of just leading up to the night, Thursday night and everything, is usually that Sunday all your scouts are coming to town, and you kind of start locking yourself in a room. You start setting your board. Your 1 to 60 board. Every team kind of does it differently, and that's where the whole process goes. And by Thursday, your board is set. You've already made contact with all 30 teams. You've got possibly potential deals on the table, and you've got options A, B, C, D, and E. So you're well prepared, and if there's an opportunity to make a deal that night, that what's out there and what the contingencies are and everything.
Well, you mentioned the deal making, so I assume you probably know what I'm about to kind of get into. There's a lot.
I do.
There's a lot of controversy here in Charlotte about what happened on draft night in the war room. I got a quote here from Curtis Polk, who is the vice chairman of the Hornets. He's basically Michael Jordan's number 2 guy, describing the situation in the Hornets room when the Boston quote unquote Godfather trade offers were coming in. He said, "You don't have a day, you don't have hours. After all the intelligence we'd done, we were comfortable with Frank. But now you have 2 minutes to decide if you make this trade, who you're going to take at number 16 or maybe number 20, and we haven't been focusing on that range." How do you read those quotes?
Well, it's 5 minutes, so he's a little bit off on the time. So you do have a little bit more, you got a little more of a buffer there and everything like that. But it's an interesting situation in Charlotte where, you have got, probably the greatest player of all time down there as your owner, and your ownership group is a little more involved probably than a normal team. When I was in Brooklyn and in New Jersey, would our owner kind of poke in and stick his head in? Yeah. Would he be in there as a guy making a decision? No. So it's a little bit different, I think, than what you see down in what's going on in Charlotte and everything like that. So I don't know. Every team is different, but I know when I was in New Jersey and Brooklyn, we had contingencies. If we did move back, who were the guys we were looking at? Is if we had someone ranked number 9 on our board and he was still there at 15, can we go move to get him, or if can we move pieces around and to do some things? So I don't think, the big thing is you never want to get surprised, the night of the draft and everything. I think, the majority of teams are prepared and stuff like that. So that's kind of a little bit of a hard statement to kind of stomach.
Interesting stuff there from Bobby Marks, was an assistant GM with the Nets from 2010 to 2015. Charlotte's a small market team. I don't know if you probably can't consider Brooklyn a small market. That's a pretty big market. Charlotte's a small market team. We hear about the challenges that presents in attracting players here and keeping them. Do you think that those challenges are real? Are they overblown? Do you think that the tide is shifting a little bit towards small markets?
I think it's shifting. I think you saw it this past summer where you had, you look at New York and LA, two big, huge markets that had, a lot of cap space, and kind of went over, with some of these big names and everything, where you looked at some of the smaller markets like a Milwaukee who has put a good product on the court, especially last year, and was able to go out and get a Greg Monroe. I think if Charlotte has a good year, I think this might be the most probably important year they've had in a long time, especially where they're going into next summer with potentially a lot of cap space. The cap's going to take a nice hike to probably 89, 90 million. that there'll be a draw come free agency. I think if they go, like they did last year, and if they're in the lottery again, I think it's a hard sell to lure some of these top notch guys. And I think what free agents, especially the veteran ones that can, maybe their last chance at it, they want to go to a winning team that can win right now. They don't want to be part of a rebuild. So it's going to be an important year for Charlotte. And if they have a good year, they'll be an attractive place. It's a good home crowd down there. It's a good place to live. It's a good place to raise your family.
Yeah, Bobby, I think that's the biggest question mark is just how does this season play out, assuming it goes well and they have some success, like of course they're planning to do. Do you see the biggest challenge being, trying to retain some of those guys like Batum, or is it going out and finding more free agents to add to the mix, especially once the salary cap starts exploding?
Well, I think it'll be important to kind of retain your own. You'll have a year to kind of you'll have Batum under your watch for a year. You'll be able to have an advantage where other teams won't. Well, you'll be with him. You'll be in the locker room. You'll have your coaches. You'll be traveling with him and stuff like that. So you'll get a better comfort level. You'll have Al as a free agent too. So those are two main pieces. Can you retain those and also, add some other players? That's going to be the big thing. It's going to be interesting next summer just because there's so many teams that are going to have so much cap space. Potentially have a lot of cap space. We'll see what happens with when these rookies extensions, they do come off the board. And it's not a great free agent class after you kind of get past some of the big names and stuff like that. So, with Charlotte, if they do have a good year and they're back in the playoffs, that means that Batum and Jefferson also had good years. So it will be important. And I know they're, especially with Al, he's kind of getting up there with age a little bit, to bring those back just because it's good always to have that familiarity instead of that rotating door.
Bobby, you rocked Twitter this summer, the NBA Twitter, and you just rocked our show. Great information. We really appreciate it. You can follow Bobby on Twitter at BobbyMarks42. Do it now. Thank you so much, Bobby.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.